Once upon a time, or beyond time, narrator was really nervous, even though she had done this billions of times. It was part of the life cycle she had placed herself into. As one of the Dream Lords, she is one of the few beings who had full autonomy over their existence. She's not living, at least not in the way humans understand life. She's not part of anyone else's myth, sacred text, or sci-fi novel. She's not an allegory, metaphor, or symbol. And even though she was once part of someone else's dream, you know what, let's save that for later. Once she built a wonderful blue palace with 8 magnificently decorated gates. The whole palace was for their and their children. Who are those children, you might ask? Narrator spends their eternity by collecting artifacts with various backstories, like a hammer that scratched the Berlin Wall, a stream of water that turns anyone into cutest little goatlets, or an apple that which every bite gives anyone a vessel against gods. But she didn't keep them as most collectors do. She put words into them which changed into spells, and spells became first breath. Narrator gave them life. Hammer, water, apple, and more. Soonly there were enough of them to build their own community, which named itself the Briefings. Like other communities, herds or flocks, the Briefings created their own costumes and traditions. One of them was called Brief Giving, a big celebration during which narrator imbued life into a new object. Narrator did this so many times that she numbed herself to the nervousness. But this time was different, so different that it made narrator nervous, as I said. And not just nervous, too nervous. The time for brief giving came, and all 8 gates opened simultaneously. Crowds of briefings entered the halls of the Blue Palace. Only narrators stayed in their room. Their mind drifted back to distant past of distant place. She remembered her. Her name was Madla. She was born into the household of a potmaker, the only parent she knew. She had a good relationship with her father, who taught her his craft, how to touch clay and shape it into the pots that told stories of gods, heroes, and hybrids. You know what? It could be said that the bloom of her life was beautiful. But everything changed when she told him the truth. "But you are my son," he said. "No, I'm not," she responded. The day Madla left the place she once called home, she never understood why he couldn't accept her change when change was his daily craft. Perhaps because this change wasn't under the rule of his hands. Narrator brought their mind back to their time. She put on something festive, even though she didn't feel festive, and left their chambers. When Contrabass noticed her, she began playing songs in the language spoken before Tower of Babel fell. She sang about how she was made from the wood of a willow that knew everyone's secrets. She sang about how she had been brought to the birthday party of a cruel king, where she revealed his greatest secret, that beneath his crown hid donkey ears. That night, the kingdom lost its eternity, and historians began to write a new chapter. After her, Syrinx took her place at the microphone. She composed a ballad about how she had once been a nymph before Pan tried to take her against her will. To save herself, she fled to the waters of her father, Ladon, begging for his help. Ladon transformed her into water reeds, but even then, Syrinx found no rest. Pan cut her reeds and bound them into a pipe. Most of the briefings were mesmerized by the chant. Some even had tears in their eyes, but 3 of them paid less than a little of attention. Once I was water, but then suddenly changed into wine. Since then I'm living best of life, said Wine. What a journey, Living Water replied. My brother and I never experienced such a transformation, but we know how it feels when you learn to wield your power. Just a few drops spilled, and there are unwanted deaths and resurrections everywhere. Mortal Water said nothing, just nodded in agreement. Neither ballads nor small talk could distract Zir from flashbacks. Their mind fell into the second storyline once more. After Madla left her father's house, she went to the temple of Pan, the goddess of women like her. She approached the sacred fire and threw a scrap of parchment paper into it. The fire accepted her offering. Then she prayed. Gracious Lan, I burn my own name in the flames dedicated to your name. Now I come to you as Madla, begging for guidance. I have no place to stay. Can I find refuge in your halls? Please, let me become your priestess. Suddenly, the fire whispered to Madla. They were the whispers of Len herself. Go up to the north, where you find hills covered in flowers you never seen before. Those hills are called home by a witch named Wida, and soon they will be your home too. Thank you for your sacrifices, Madla. Now go. Madla followed the advice, and after a few weeks she found a landscape fitting Len's description. She also found Wida. Madla told Wida her whole story, and Wida took her as an apprentice. Madla learned the names of every flower, how to brew potions that could both heal and harm, how to treat bruises, wounds, and pains, how to assist in childbirth and how to prevent it. She learned how to turn water into blood and blood into milk. But Madla's knowledge went beyond witchcraft. Wida's friends, woodland beings, taught her more. The 4 bards, immortal foremothers of birds, taught her to sing, showing her how lyrics were akin to spells. The Wilas, daughters of Duba, goddess of the forest, taught her how to dance and speak the language of animals, trees, flowers, and stones. The eastern giants, abandoned children of gods, taught her smithery and how to imbue objects with miracles. Madla became a multi-skilled seer, and after Wida went to the beyond, she took Wida's place. I'm so sorry, narrator, said Estradier Gel, who bumped into Zir by accident. She was rushing towards tennis racket, surrounded by her fans. Can I have your autograph? I saw the match in which you helped Billie Jean win, and since then I have been your biggest fan," said one of them. Racket smiled and signed the paper the child held. Nearby, a popular magician, Three Hazelnuts, was performing tricks. Their tricks were always fashion-wise, so dressier briefings were always hoping that they might win a pearl necklace as a souvenir. But neither sports nor magic could distract Zir from flashbacks. Their mind fell into a second storyline once more. Madla became well known across the known world. People, hybrids, critters, birds, bugs came to her for healing, blessings, or magical protection. She helped everyone, and to ensure more beings could get help they need, she took on apprentices who became new bearers of the wisdom passed down by Veda, Forbards, Velas, and Eastern giants. Madla was respected and beloved by many, and though she cherished helping others, her days became consumed with work, leaving no time for rest, at least not in the waking world. The only place for her to hide was in her own mind, in the landscapes of dreams. Here, she built a beautiful garden, more exquisite than any garden that have ever existed. Around this time, Dreamworld narrator left the dream in which she was created. That dream resided in the head of bloodthirsty emperor who wanted to conquer the planet and everything beyond. She had been one of his soldiers, but she didn't want to be a soldier. She wanted to fly, so she did. She flew away as far as possible from the dream which anyone else would consider a nightmare. Along the way, she once landed in Madla's garden. She wanted just a sip of water from the garden's river before continuing on their journey. But she met her. The introduction of themselves led to the talk. They were both wanderers, each running from places that had once been homes but had grown into chains. Madla asked Zir to stay with her for a while. She agreed. Honest conversations soon turned into trust and mutual sympathies into love. But their time was too short. Madla's kindness began to change the world she was born into. Many began to question the structures they grew up in. They began to doubt that some bodies were destined to sit on golden thrones while others labored on their fields. A new seed, the seed of revision bloom, took root in people's minds. Its sweet fragrance found its way into higher places too. The king of all gods himself smelled it, and it troubled him. The king knew that he as a god was just a reflection of those who believed in him, and those never questioned stories about his greatness. But if mortals reclaimed stories, took them from the crowns and blades of rulers, and made them their own power, he would fade. Fade. He also knew that revolutions were crucial parts of mythos. He himself rose on the bones of first sower, creator of the world, and his mother he killed with his hands. The king decided to act. He descended to the mortal world and shapeshifted into an arrow. In this form he shot Madla, and then miraculously disappeared. Her apprentices tried to save her, but their efforts were in vain. A wound made by an ordinary arrow could be healed with few herbs and spells, but the king transformed into the arrow infused with poison unknown to any living being. And it was kind of poison that divided souls from their bodies, and Madla's soul was no exception. Narrator waited her, but she never came back. When trees and flowers began to wilt, the river dried up, and butterflies, bees, and birds turned into dust, they understood what happened. They left her garden, leaving their tears to water the soil of dying dream. After they built the Blue Palace, they sent letters to her, though they didn't know where her soul had gone. They wrote to every version of the afterlife, every place a soul might end up, but no response ever came. No more remembering what has been lost, they had invited everyone to this brief giving for a reason. They said, "Candles, give yourselves rest." All of the candles obeyed their command and dimmed. Then narrator performed a short spell in a language now forgotten by most. After the last letter of the last word, 10 glowing orbs appeared. All 10 orbs drifted towards celebrated objects hidden under a cloth woven from the night sky covered in stars. With a flick of the fingers, the cloth turned into bluish spark, rising to the sky where they belong. The ceramics, delicate and intricate, were finally visible to the visitors of the Blue Palace. These ceramics were made by Madla. She never forgot her pot-making skills, even though the one who taught her had forsaken her. She combined her talent in pottery with witchcraft, just in a way the giants taught her with smithery. Through clay, she materialized her visions of the future. These particle ceramics were modeled after the belongings of queens who had mastered the art now known as drag. Narrator wanted to open their mouth to let the reviving spell escape the cage of their teeth. She was stopped by one of the 8 gates, which opened widely. Only one being entered the chamber. "Sorry, I'm late," Madla said with a warm smile on her face.